Hey everyone, and welcome back to the news. So, the year's almost out, but we've just had a bunch of big reveals really late in the month. It's actually a pretty darn quiet Christmas period for World of Warcraft, but at the very least, we know what's going on in January, so there is that. Now, okay, also, it's here. Our art book has finally arrived, and man, I am so happy how this, actually came out. So, it chronicles, the development of our channels, assets, the Patreon art, the pins, the stickers, and then a very final bit in it is a look at our game. So, there's that. Now, it's also, of course, still December, so in addition to this, you'll get the Death Knight pack too. It's a hell of a lot of stuff. It's over there on Patreon, so if you're patrons for this month, December, then when Patreon charges December patronage, which usually happens in the 1st to 3rd of the following month, that's when we're then able to ship them out. And I mean, man, how wild. Never thought I'd be doing an art book, doing pins, things like that. It's crazy. So yeah, suffice to say, we got big things planned next year. Anyway, a massive thank you to all of them for their support. It really is key, especially in these sort of content lulls with the Warcraft cycle. We appreciate it so much. It's the core of what our team really is caring about. So a big thank you to you. And with that, let's get into the news. Finally, yes, finally, patch 8.3 has a release date, and it's pretty darn close. It's under 1 month away on the 14th of January, 2020. Of course, that's the 15th for the EU. Now, obviously, it's a WoW patch, so the dates are a little bit spread out, so it drops on the 14th of January, but the raid opens up on normal and heroic 1 week later on the 21st, with Mythic and LFR 1 being the week after that, Raid Finder week 2 being the 11th of February, Wing 3 being the 25th, and then finally, the final Raid Finder will open up on the 10th of March. So, all in all, yeah, not that long. You'll be doing the longish intro quest, you'll be doing the assaults, the visions, you'll get your legendary cloak, your new allied races, there'll be some class changes, the new essences, new auction house, and I suppose you'll be getting going with some new corrupted gear. It's, it's kind of an odd patch, right? The content reuse is fairly clear with what they're doing, but design-wise, I do think it's doing some interesting things, and I'm really keen to see how the player base actually receives it. It's also the final patch of BFA, the final major patch, so with it having a date, I think we're actually now able to properly talk through the future of World of Warcraft. So patch 8.3 is 4 to 6 months late as compared to 7.3's relative timing. Of course, that was the final patch of Legion. Now, this does make things kind of tricky for Shadowlands. And I think it's pretty clear they're going to miss the August 2020 release date that I think they ideally would have liked to have for Shadowlands. Of course, that's August is when they had Legion and BFA come out. Overall, I think we are looking at a Q3 launch next year for Shadowlands, though the only firm confirmation we have is that it will launch before the end of next year. Now, the beta is the next big thing. That's going to be tricky. I'm expecting, maybe alpha in mid to late February and beta pretty soon afterwards. I mean, if we're going for a September or October release, they'd really need to get the beta out around that time. I mean, Battle for Azeroth, it did not have a long enough beta test, and of course it also didn't help that, much of the feedback people actually did give was just glossed over and didn't really make it into the launch version of the game. Anyway, Shadowlands, it needs that longer beta test, it needs more communication from the team, so I'm thinking February, and to be honest with you, I do actually think the devs are pretty aware of that. I think the last thing that they want to do is to have another Azerite situation on their hands. So with all that covered, let's get down to business. So account-wide essences sure have been a bit of a firestorm, with many seeing the essences as 8.2 content that is a barrier to actually playing 8.3. Now, some of them are a bit more agnostic, right, like doing a Mythic +7, but the likes of the Ashara kills and the Mechagon and Nazjatar rep, I mean, yeah, I don't think that's what people would be hyped to be doing in 8.3, especially when, 8.3 is adding its own essences. So, Formless Void, that's the NY'ALOTHA raid farm one, and then each role has one from Horrific Visions and one from one of the new reputations with, I think, the rank 3 coming at Revered. So, I mean, yeah, for a new character, it would be quite a lot of farming, but it does seem like Blizzard are actually doing something, that's why we're talking about this today. So, Memory of Lucid Dreams, it's had a change that has sparked headlines of account-wide essences. And that's technically true, but it's only for rank 4, and it's only account-wide because, well, the achievement that gives you rank 4 is now account-wide. Now, with that said, it does highlight something else. Blizzard have nerfed some key requirements, so ranks 2 and 3 of the Mechagon and Nazjatar reputation essences, they now require 1 level less rep, and the same actually goes for the follower Nazjatar one, and they've also added a BOA rep token to the Nazjatar rep that will cost mana pearls, so you can give that to your alts. And this really will speed those alts up a lot, but like, I expect it'll fall short of what many actually want to have here. I mean, hey, I'm sure like you PvEers, I'm sure what you want to do in your brand new alt is to do a PvP island, right? I mean, the whole thing here is kind of interesting. Normally, I've actually been pretty pro, like, your main is your main. Stuff's important there, and, you know, things not being that account-wide. But I think what I have there is a very traditional view, and it's not really lining up with how WoW is actually played and how Blizzard designs much of the game. So I think account-wide essences, you know, I think they have their pros and their cons, but I think they would work in this case. I think BFA's been a bit of a mess. 8.3 looks pretty decent, so let's just make 8.3 be that reset and just make it easy for people to get in. As for the future, you know what, let's just look to the past. In Mists of Pandaria, you got an account-wide rep boost if your main got to a certain like amount of rep with a faction, and like, you know, for say Valor points, you would also get like a Valor point boost on your alts once your main had capped. So I think those were pretty decent middle of the road solutions, though of course way back in Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard actually did make the rep bound shoulder enchants account-wide as well. I think either of those methods would get the job done here, and perhaps, you know, that plus some targeted reductions in requirements, I think that could reach a happy medium of sorts. Tell you what though, let me know in the poll that just flashed up on the top of your screen. What do you want? Do you want no changes from present? Do you want account-wide? Or do you just want a speed increase for your alts? And next up, we've got something a little bit strange. Now, look, the logic in this change, there's logic there, it does exist, but the impact is a little bit crazy. So, war mode, right? Blizzard are updating the Black Empire and NY'ALOTHA assault quests, and this is stuff you'll be doing a lot in this patch with a war mode bonus. Now, the assaults are not like world quest based, so without this, you know, like there wouldn't be a reason to really do it with war mode unless you actually, you know, wanted to do PvP. Of course, Blizzard really do seem to want that incentive to be there, so it does seem logical what they're doing here, okay? Well, the thing is, there's a major implication, because this bonus applies to coalescing visions. Now, coalescing visions, they are the currency needed to enter 8.3's horrific visions, and horrific visions, they're like one of the most important things you can do to progress your character. Now, the thing is that those the coalescing essences or visions, they are a like weekly limited resource. There's only so many you can get in a week, and that means that if you just turn on that war mode bonus, well, that's a war mode bonus that's applying to a very limited weekly gated resource, and that means that over time the people who use war mode, they will pull ahead a little bit. It also means that when the factions aren't balanced, one will pull ahead even more. I mean, my faction regularly is a 15 or 20% war mode bonus, and over a few weeks, that's going to lead to me doing more horrific visions, and that would probably mean I'd pull ahead. So it's a bit of a wild situation. I'll say this, right, personally, I actually really like war mode. War mode plus the assaults, you know, in 8.1, I really enjoyed that. But I think that, you know, the incentive, sometimes it just pushes people towards war mode, even if they don't necessarily want to do war mode. And especially in this case, even if it is less time efficient because it would take longer because of war mode, you know, war mode would be increasing the absolute amount of a limited resource that you could earn in a week, and that really would make war mode extremely appealing. Now, sure, the same thing happened for AP, but I mean, this currency is far more important than AP. Now, look, Blizz, I mean, I get the point here, but I just don't think this is a very good implementation. I think that war mode, just maybe have it give you some bonus honor gold, maybe a little bit of conquest, something like that. I think that would keep the war mode more focused on PvP, and, you know, that would mean that, hey, I could do war mode, and if I did my assaults in war mode, maybe it would help me just progress through some of my PvP gear, and that would be a bit of fun. But yeah, an odd situation, and I find it hard to see it actually making it into the live game. It seems a little bit wild. Okay, next up, gear. I hope you like gear. Blizzard have decided to upgrade the Time Walking weekly quest to give you a piece of heroic raid loot. Yes, heroic raid loot. You'll be getting that from doing a few face roll time walking dungeons, and that in this patch equates to a free bit of 460 or 470 gear. Of course, remember, the last two bosses drop gear 10 item levels higher. Overall, the intent is pretty clear, right? We all know it. They just want people to be doing it more. I think this change will reduce queue times, and it will lead to more engagement in the game in general. I think the times are also interesting here, okay? So there's time walking weeks on the 28th of January, 18th of February, and 17th of March. Now, you know, that's all past when the raid comes out, and that basically means that, like, you're getting, like, a bunch of free heroic tier loot in, like, the first few weeks of that raid, and I mean, that's not even taking into account, say, a mythic dungeon event, which would also give you some free heroic raid loot. So it sure is a lot of free loot. And there is one thing that did pop into my mind, because I remembered back when I was playing Warlords of Draenor, okay? And my guild had done, you know, we killed enough bosses that, the way that it actually worked, you see the mission table there? I mean, if you didn't play this, it might seem a bit wild. The mission table in WoD would give you, every week, a piece of raid gear, one difficulty level above what you raid. And because of that system, I basically just ended up having a stupid amount of gear, because I'd unlocked that, but then, my guild sort of really fell apart. But I was just sitting there for the rest of that tier, getting all this free loot. Anyway, I think it was one above what you currently raid. It may have been the same that you currently raid, but the TLDR here is it really was quite a lot of loot. So yeah, it's an odd situation. I mean, things like this, they will get people to go back into the game, do some dungeons, have some fun with their friends, but at the same time, is there a cheapening of loot? I think that's always the push and pull. Anyway, let's move on to Warcraft 3 Reforged. It's got a release date, January 28th, 2020. That is 4 to 6 months later than was initially announced when Blizzard first accepted pre-orders last year at BlizzCon. And that very much does point towards just a troubled development cycle. I mean, that kind of delay, it's a bit wild. And some of that troubled dev cycle, I mean, if you look at the models, I think they've been all over the place, the datamine ones. Some of them have been really sticking to the style. Others have seemed far too high detail, a bit like Raid Shadow Legends. And some of the combat scenes haven't been super readable in the same way that the original was. And I think that makes sense in the context of a lot of those assets being farmed out to external studios. But in terms of other things, I mean, the whole situation does cast some doubt on Blizzard's reasoning for the abandonment of the larger campaign changes they'd originally planned. So the original goal, right, was to update the content of the campaign, to actually give more screen time to important characters like Jane and Sylvanas, who matter a lot now, and even redesigning some missions like Stratholme to reflect World of Warcraft. They said that the abandonment of that plan was down to player feedback, people just wanting the original remastered. But considering how all that stuff would be a lot of work and how behind schedule this project obviously has been, well, part of me thinks that was just a PR-friendly way of cutting the content and getting out a bit quicker. Overall, though, it's a strange situation. I mean, come on, Blizz accepted pre-orders for this in November 2018, saying a summer release date. They obviously thought they'd make that summer release date. Apparently not, though, and I suppose we can speculate as to why, but we'll probably never know. And then next up, the most exciting bit of news. There are classic paid transfers for, going between realms. So that's a thing. I mean, it makes sense, right? Paid transfers, they were added in Classic, so the inclusion here is hardly a surprise. But, as always, in my view, it's a horrendously overpriced feature. I doubt people are going to be super thrilled about it. And, I mean, overall, I think the downsides of being on, on a bad Classic server, I think they're worse because of the reliance on the server community. So I imagine the transfers will be a pretty tidy moneymaker for Classic. It'll give it a bit more just additive revenue instead of just, helping out with the WoW subscription money. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I think we all expected it. It's also a point that I think we've all talked to death and really couldn't be bothered talking too much more about. So, there you go. It has been, it's been an interesting period of time, right? Because, there was a lot of hype with Shadowlands. I mean, in some ways, there was lots of hype. There was a lot of kind of mixed hype I sort of found in the channel going through the comments, and Shadowlands-related content just dropped like a rock in a way that, say, BFA-related content after its announcement didn't. And, I'm just thinking that that's because, BFA has had its issues, issues that Legion didn't have. I think less people have been playing. I think there's maybe a bit of emotional resonance that didn't really come through in the announcement of Shadowlands, and that really does seem to have led to this just real big dip in interest in World of Warcraft, which, I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate. I mean, especially, I think some of the lore content we've been doing and Nikki coming on board. I mean, have you seen all the new transitions we've had? The sort of smoky stuff that they can cut in really well, new ways we do all the text. So it's a little bit sad that sort of interest dropped right when we made all those big improvements, but you know what, they will pay dividends in the future, so I'm not complaining, I'm happy about it. But it just has been a bit of a lull for World of Warcraft. To me, it's very interesting that now 8.3 is, it's late, absolutely. I think I originally was expecting this in November, December at the very latest. For it to be mid-January, I mean, that really is unfortunate, I think, for everyone, including Blizzard, right? To be clear, I don't think Blizzard want this to happen. But, I mean, it is what happens, so I've got to wonder, will that World of Warcraft interest actually uptick a little bit? I mean, there certainly are positive aspects to patch 8.3 that I think a lot of people will be interested in. And then I suppose after that, February, that'll probably see us into the beta, and that's when we're really kind of just going to be seeing so much more of Shadowlands and really getting a feel of what it actually is, because all we've really seen of Shadowlands thus far is, a few fly-throughs of zones in a trailer and a Sylvanas cinematic that in reality is going to have barely any, bearing on what we actually play. I mean, sure, the battle for Lordaeron, that was a big thing for BFA. Everyone's like, oh, wow, this is exciting hype. But, what were you actually doing? Well, you were helping the Outriders, whatever they were called, in Borealis. You were dealing with the witches. You were dealing with the Tentacle Boys, right? It wasn't that connected to the primary marketing of the expansion. So really, I think that beta testing period is just going to give us so much more texture on what Shadowlands actually is going to be. So, should be an exciting experience. Till then, though, I think we'll be a little bit lighter in content for the channel as we sort of go through the Christmas break. I mean, honestly, we're now a larger outfit, and I think that means, just a little bit, we want to be a little bit less scrappy. We want to give people a bit more, just do more time off, just take things chill, that sort of thing, where not just chasing tomorrow's goal, because if you go completely rabid for tomorrow's goal, you get burned out, it ends up not really working out. So that's roughly where I'm feeling as we're ending this year. It's been a really incredible year. Just the expansion of the YouTube team, the other channel. There's been so much going on, and with Warcraft, it does seem like it's been a very bumpy ride. Let's just say, certainly a bumpy ride, but I think we are headed in a better direction. I think 8.3 is doing a lot of interesting things. I mean, I'm back in World of Warcraft with the intent of being ready for 8.3, and looking at Shadowlands, I do have one or two concerns, but looking at those zones, looking at the philosophies that Blizzard have espoused at BlizzCon, I do think there's actually a lot of really good hope there. I don't suspect it's going to be another BFA. I don't think it'll be perfect, but yeah, I just feel like they must have learned by this stage, and just thinking about that BlizzCon tone, I am a little bit more hopeful for the future. So yeah, basically that's where I'm at, that's what I'm thinking. If you'd like to support us, support what we're doing, and also get the art book, which I should probably hold the right way around. I mean, feel the quality of this thing, right? It properly, I was just really impressed with how these actually turn out. They feel nice and good quality. So if you want to support us, you want to get one of these, and also the Death Knight pack, it's an incredible way to just support what we're doing, and yeah, you can check that out. Anyway, with that, I hope you all have an incredible time. We may get some more content out over the next few days. Not 100% sure yet, so if this is, goodbye till the new year, then I hope you have a fantastic holiday. And if not, then, hey, I'll see you in the next one. And with that, I suppose, yes, I'll see you in the next one.